Hi, welcome back to Battle with Ola. My name is Mujola Oluwa, and in this episode, it's going to be a short video. We want to talk about the criminal offense or the crime of treason and treasonable felony. Treason and treasonable felony. It's a very old crime, very important crime, because it's something that comes up every day and every other day. It is also very important for us to look at it because it is one of those crimes that has a very wide interpretation. Yes, it's already codified what should be treason and treasonable felony, but if we look at the letters of the law, you would find, I'm going to read the provisions of the law to you from the criminal code, the Nigerian criminal code. You would find that it gives the latitude to any government of the day or their prosecutorial arm or authorities to weave different actions and inactions into treason and treasonable felony. And this is what we have seen, especially with governments that are anti-human rights, even in democracies. In a democratic dispensation, we have seen instances of people being charged for treason, for treasonable felonies, for acts that are largely questionable, as to the extent of the correlation or the appropriateness of those charges. The debate continues. What should constitute treason? What should constitute treasonable felony? Is it even an offense that should be found in a democracy? And why are the powers of the state so wide, the latitude so wide, to interpret actions and inactions of citizens into the modes of these offenses? Now let's look at what the law says. I'm reading section 37 of the Nigerian Criminal Code, and we're going to be going downwards and downwards from 37. Any person who levies war against the state in order to intimidate or overawe the president or the governor of a state is guilty of treason and is liable to the punishment of death. Any person conspiring with any person, either within or without Nigeria, to levy war against the state with intent to cause such levying of war as would be treason if committed by a citizen of Nigeria is guilty of treason and is liable to the punishment of death. Provided that nothing in this section shall prevent any act from being treason, which is so by the laws of England as enforced in Nigeria. Any person who instigates any foreigner to invade Nigeria with an armed force is guilty of treason and is liable to punishment of death. Where an offender who, in the opinion of the court, has not attained the age of 17 years at the time the offense was committed, has been found guilty of an offense against either section 37 or 38, which is what I have read, of this code, such offender shall not be sentenced to death, but shall be ordered to be detained during the pleasure of the President, and upon such an order being made, the provisions of Part 44 of the Criminal Procedure Act shall apply. Where a woman who has been convicted of an offense against either Section 37 or 38 of this code alleges she is pregnant, or where the judge before whom she is convicted considers it advisable to have inquiries made as to whether or not she be pregnant, the procedure laid down in Section 376 of the Criminal Procedure Act shall first be complied with. Now it goes on to talk about concealment of treason and treasonable felonies. Essentially, what these provisions are saying is that if you try to take over the Nigerian government, you are guilty of treason, and the punishment is death. Then, if you are under 17 years when you are convicted, you will not be killed because the punishment is death, but you will be held at the governor's pleasure. When you are held at the governor's pleasure, it means that the sentence that you would, the punishment that would have been implemented against you by order of court, were you to be of the age of an adult, will be stayed, and then you will be kept in custody. Also, if a pregnant woman and you have been convicted of treason, you will not be killed. The court will ascertain if you are indeed pregnant, but the punishment of death will not be executed against you. If you check section 376 of the Criminal Procedure Act that's been referenced, what it just says, or the provision basically means, or it provides that if a pregnant woman is being tried for treason, found guilty, and is going to be convicted, the punishment of death will be reduced to a life sentence. By virtue of a pregnancy, it will be reduced to a life sentence. Of course, the court will inquire into the fact of her pregnancy, whether she is indeed pregnant. So that's treason. It says that if you intimidate or overawe the government, essentially what it means is that if you try to take over the government of the day, or if you try to do anything that can topple, destroy, or destroy really the government of the day, someone would wonder, how can I overawe or intimidate the president, for instance? That's what the criminal code says. I mean, you look at yourself, you are a private citizen. Is it even possible for you to intimidate the president? You can't even go near Aso Rock in many instances, talk less of going through all of that security to get to the president. No, you don't have to see him physically to be able to intimidate him or overawe him. If, for instance, you try to take the president out, maybe to kill him, assassinate him, have him gunned down, have him poisoned, anything that you can do that can make the government come to an abrupt end, not by the democratic process, can be interpreted into treason. Anything, when I say make the government come to an end, essentially take away the life of the president, or bring that government to an end, not by a lawful means or a democratic means. It can be interpreted into treason and treasonable felony. In those days when we had military rule, when there's a coup, if the coup officers are apprehended, the officers that implemented the coup, when they are apprehended, they are usually tried for treason, and they are usually executed, by firing squad, or by any means, any other means, as may be decreed by the government that is now in power. But essentially, because they have caused a change of government not by the lawful means, it is interpreted as treason. So what other acts can be interpreted as treason? If you're fighting in a war that is against Nigeria, say another country is fighting a war now, and you, a Nigerian citizen owing allegiance to Nigeria, sign up in that war on the side of that other country fighting against your state, that is treason. Also, if you're spying for a foreign power or a foreign government, spying against your state, essentially treason has its basis in citizenship and allegiance. If you are a citizen of Nigeria, you owe the Nigerian government your allegiance, your commitment, your loyalty. So in everything you're doing, the interest of the Nigerian government should come first. It should be priority. That's the ideal now, because I know someone would then say, is the Nigerian government putting my own interest as their priority? That should be the ideal. The government prioritizes your interest, you prioritize the interest of the government, give and take. But that's probably not what happens in real life. But the rationale behind treason is that you should prioritize the interest of your government. So if you are now found to be sabotaging your government, such that you are doing or committing acts that can bring that government to an unlawful end, it is treason. So if you're spying for another state, another country against your government, if you're fighting a war against your government, if you're doing any acts that you're trying to kill the president, trying to do any acts that can undermine or overawe the government in power, that is treason, and it is punishable by death. Now, you would notice that in most instances, the government is very swift in prosecuting treason. So you would wonder, someone has stolen a goat, or someone has raped somebody, and their case is languishing in jail, or even in police, on the police desk, they are still saying they are conducting investigation. The DPP's legal advice is not out. But when it's treason, you see a kind of swift action. They have charged the person. They have probably even ordered the arrest of the person. Sometimes, unlawful arrests, unlawful detention. Yes, the arrest may be lawful, but the detention too. Or the arrest could even be unlawful in the process and the style of arrest. Usually, government does this to freedom fighters, in most cases human rights activists, and then they quickly charge them. The advice is out, they appear in court, and you're wondering why. treason has a lifespan of 2 years. So 2 years from when the act was committed. If the person is not tried for that offense, then it expires. There's a statute of limitation on treason. So the limitation period is 2 years. Treason, any act that is treasonable, any act of treason must be tried within the 2 years of the commission of that act. Why? This is to ensure that the government of the day is not using this provision of law as a vendetta tool. So if you have watched for 2 years, what reason do you have to then come and sue or come and try someone for treason? Essentially, 2 years would mean that you have survived if you are the government in power. 2 years would mean that they were not successful with whatever they tried to do. Or 2 years would mean that they stopped their act, or you did not consider that act serious enough to undermine or overawe you as the government. So 2 years treason, trying someone for treason, for an act of treason expires after 2 years. So it's not just military officers, like I have said, freedom fighters, private citizens. The basis is citizenship. So if you're a citizen, you qualify if you commit such acts to be tried for treason. Now, you would look at what some of the freedom fighters and the human rights activists have been tried for over the years, and would have questions as to the legality of those trials. You have questions as to the interpretation process of the prosecuting powers. Some of the things they have done, well, things done well within their fundamental human rights. So treason is a crime that is at loggerheads with fundamental human rights to a very large extent. Yes, the state must be protected, the government must be protected, the integrity of the government must be protected so that the state can run, unhindered and unabatingly. But what then happens to fundamental human rights? And when these two rights clash, what should be the balance? So let's discuss that in the comment section. Now, treasonable felony is like treason. But treasonable felony, the difference between them is that treasonable felony is punished by life imprisonment. The difference between them is that treasonable felony is punished by life imprisonment, not by death. And treasonable felony is more of an offense of intention. So you may not have carried out the act. If you are found to have, had the intention, or carried out an act that displays or discloses an intention to overawe the government, or to take over the government, or to topple the government in power, or to undermine the government, to undermine the president, to undermine the state, you may be tried for treasonable felony. Also, if you're found to be an accessory after the fact for treason, you found out that some people are planning to commit treason, you did not disclose this, you did not report it, you may be tried for treasonable felony. So treasonable felony is like the sister to treason, so it's less serious in the acts that may constitute it and in the punishment for it. Let's see what the criminal code says on treasonable felony. Section 41 of the criminal code, treasonable felonies. Any person who forms an intention to effect any of the following purposes, that is to say, to remove during the term of office, otherwise than by constitutional means, the President as head of state of the Federation and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces thereof, to likewise remove during his term of office the governor of the state, or to levy war against Nigeria in order by force or constraint to compel the President to change his measures or counsels, or in order to put any force or constraint upon, or in order to intimidate or overawe any house of the National Assembly or any other legislature or legislative authority, to instigate any foreigner to make any armed invasion of Nigeria or any of the territories thereof, and manifest such intention by an overt act, is guilty of a felony, and is liable to imprisonment for life. A person charged with any of the felonies defined in this section is not entitled to be acquitted on the ground that any act proved to have been committed by him constitutes the offense of treason. But a person who has been tried and convicted or acquitted on a charge of any such offense cannot be afterwards prosecuted for treason in respect of the same facts. So any of those acts constitute treasonable felony. Essentially, you would see that treasonable felony is a crime of intention, but it is not like any other inchoate offense, because what we're looking at essentially is an act. There must be an act. That's the actus reus. but the act will disclose an intention to overhaul the government. It could be federal or state or even the National Assembly, or even to incite or support a foreign invasion of the Nigerian of Nigeria as a country. So it is an act that discloses an intention to do those things. Now you would notice that for this offense, these offenses, the acts that constitute them have to do with things that are in the public sphere. So for instance, in Asari Dokubo's case, he was arrested for forming unlawful societies and inciting the public, to create a parallel government to denounce and overhaul the government in power. Government of President Olusegun Obasanjo at the time. So treasonable felony, these things, acts that constitute them must be things that affect public purposes, that affect the public in general. So you can't say that somebody in pursuit of a private purpose, now you arrest someone for treason. No. And that's why I said that you would find that most of the people who are arrested and tried for these offenses are people, freedom fighters, human rights activists. Usually the crux of their grouse with the government would be a public purpose. It could be that they are fighting for the emancipation of a tribe or an ethnic group. They are contending the validity of elections, or several other reasons. So but it must be a public purpose, not just a private endeavor. And that qualification is there to make sure that the government does not just go about witch hunting every person, and just bringing a state force and wielding it without control and without any restraint. Very important. So we've talked about treason and treasonable felony. These are crimes that ordinarily should not have place in a democratic setting, but it is what it is. And these are crimes that are loggerheads with fundamental human rights. The latitude is so wide that so many acts that are not codified already can be swiftly and smoothly infused into the ones that we've read, to interpret them into treason and treasonable felony, and to prosecute persons who are suspected or accused of committing such acts. And we've talked about the limitation period. We've talked about what happens if the person is underaged, under 17 really, or if the person is a pregnant person. And it does not affect just military. Now we're in a democratic setting, it's still affecting private citizens, civilians. So it can affect anyone, and the basis is your citizenship. So Nigeria calls us to loyalty, to commitment, to allegiance to it and to its government. But the question remains, is the Nigerian government committed to its citizens, loyal to them? Is the Nigerian government giving allegiance to its citizens? Because at the end of the day, it's a social contract that we have, both parties. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section. So long as this crime is codified, it is still the law. I hope you've learned a thing or two in this video, and I'll see you in my very next video. Don't forget to subscribe and look in the description box for all the goodies that we have to offer on Bar Talk with Ola. My name is Mujola Oluwa. To-dos.